Hi everyone. Hey folks. Beginnings of videos are really awkward for me. I don't know what to say. People watching my video.
It's just a copy of the manga. All they do is add although the music fight in the moonlight.
It has been a couple years now since I released my song parody essay critique of Sailor Moon Crystal, at least the Dark Kingdom arc, and that video has done surprisingly kind of well. As of recording this video right now, it has 78,791 views, which is, to me, unprecedented. I didn't think that many people would watch. I didn't even think like 100 people would watch it, but a lot of people have watched it, and there have been a lot of comments, and I haven't responded to most of them. To be honest, a lot of them I just hadn't even read. And I have to say, another reason why I didn't respond to most of the comments is because I have to give, like, Commenter of the Year award to Sailor Sedna. He, they have, like, responded to almost all of the comments in basically kind of the same way I would have responded to them. We agree mostly, so it's kind of like, why do I need to respond? With that out of the way, though, I want to add my 2 cents or my 20 cents to all the comments, so time to put on my glasses so I look smart. I really hate the CGI transformations. The 90s transformations were way better. This one, I don't really have that much of an opinion on, actually. I didn't mind the CGI animation, like, in general. I don't really care. What I was upset by, though, in the Sailor Moon Crystal transformation sequences is that they didn't bother to re-choreograph them really that much. Like, I really appreciated in PGSM, the live-action version of the series, how they actually re-choreographed their sequences. This is coming from somebody who actually has a dance major, and when I was a teenager and a huge rabid Sailor Moon fan, I actually, like, memorized how to do all the transformation sequences. So, like, I totally know the choreography, and I just would have appreciated if they'd re-choreographed them. The 90s version had too much filler. Crystal moves too fast, thus suffering a lack of character development or identity at all for the supporting roles. So let's all wait for the next reboot where they finally land in a good place in the middle. Haha, Molly really needs to lose that New York, Jersey accent. This I kind of do agree with, even though a lot of the filler episodes in the 90s version, like, had some funny characters and some good moments. Like, generally speaking, you could cut a lot of those episodes out and still have the character development, still have the world, still have the story, still have the emotional attachment to the characters. I felt, again, I'm just gonna sound like a broken record, I feel like PGSM did a pretty good job with pacing. Like, they weren't too, like, rushed like Sailor Moon Crystal, and they weren't too, like, lackadaisical like original Sailor Moon. Also, I feel like the pacing in S in 90s was really, really good. That's when they, like, figured out how to do pacing well. S was just the best season. To all the people thinking manga is the original SM product, nope, sweeties, your beloved manga was being written exactly at the same time the 90s anime was being made. Those episodes you call fillers could give Naoko more time to finish anything before deadline, so there is no original shit. Anime and manga are separate. Deal with it. This is another point I wanted to bring up. I was a Sailor Moon fan while the anime and manga were still being created, like in the 90s. I was actually a fan back then. Some people watching this video probably weren't even born yet at that point.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
But yeah, I remember I started watching it bootlegged. I was fortunate enough to live near Japantown, and they had a video rental store there that bootlegged the series recorded off of Japanese TV. This is before the internet, guys. This is what we had to do. When I was into Sailor Moon, like when I was super into it, Sailor Stars was being released on TV and the manga still wasn't finished yet. And I remember I watched the final episode of Sailor Stars before the final volume of the manga was available. So, like, the series, even though it technically did start with the manga, it really did technically start with that, and Takeuchi Naoko did create the series, the characters, everything. They really were somewhat running at the same time, the anime and the manga. It's like, yeah, the anime was mostly playing catch-up, but towards the end the manga was playing catch-up. So there kind of is no original in that regard. Why does everyone have to complain about Crystal? If you don't like it, don't watch it. Remember that they never had to reboot Sailor Moon and they could have left it fade away to nothing. The fans should be more appreciative about what Toei is trying to do for us, or for the US. Like, fair point, sort of. Again, if you watch to the end of the video that I made, before, you will see me saying that I actually do like Sailor Moon Crystal. I actually do like Sailor Moon Crystal. I am glad that they rebooted it. I'm glad that the fandom has come alive again. I'm glad that there's a bunch of merch. I haven't actually gotten any of that merch yet. Maybe I should. But there's a difference between just like complaining and ranting and like critiquing something. That video is mostly just pointing out my main critique, my main complaint about Crystal, and is that they let character development and especially relationships just fall to the wayside in favor of just epic fight sequences and like romance, which we'll get to later in the comments. I actually find the reboot to be a nice mix of the 90s anime and original manga. Tuxedo Mask in the original anime was kind of a pushover. They at least give him his due credit with Tuxedo La Smoking Bomber, as the big continuity burp in the manga is that only females can be Sailor Senshi, yet the Golden Crystal was Tuxedo Mask's Sailor Crystal. And let's not forget the Sailor Starlights in the anime were men that transformed into women as opposed to just women who dressed like men in the manga. And it's not really, wow, this is a long sentence. And it's not really explained why Mamoru has a transformation sequence or where all those roses are coming from in the 90s manga. Yeah, and actually, I do agree with that point. I feel like, I don't know, Tuxedo Mask in general is just, he kind of doesn't work for me in many ways. Like, the point of the series is the girls are strong, their teamwork, their friendships, and all of that, and Mamoru is kind of just the side character, but it was always this running gag in the 90s anime where like, oh no, I'm Sailor Moon, I'm in trouble, ah! And then the rose, castanets, and then Tuxedo Mask is like, it's okay, Sailor Moon, keep at it, you can do it, Saraba! And he'll like do the little cloak thing and then fly away, and then Sailor Moon will be like, Tuxedo Mask! Big long attack, and then I kill the bad guy. And it's like, yeah, it was very formulaic, and he didn't really do anything. And I was upset that he didn't have, well, he did have a transformation sequence in 90s anime. Short but sweet. But yeah, he never had an attack sequence, which was always kind of like, oh, come on. So I guess I appreciated that in Crystal, that, yeah, he has Tuxedo La Smoking Bomber or whatever. But that doesn't really, I don't know, I feel like he still doesn't really have much of a character. At least Chiba Mamoru in the 90s version did have a character. And again, I'm gonna say, PGSM, I think they did a really good job in Chiba Mamoru in PGSM. I think that was the best Chiba Mamoru incarnation of all of them. This is basically turning into a love letter for PGSM. I totally did not intend that to happen, but meh. Every people who discover Sailor Moon around me before discovering Sailor Moon Classic have preferred Sailor Moon Crystal. Your point of view is too subjective. SMC is the real Sailor Moon, and it is objective.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Humor of the 90s, etc. is a creation of the Toei, so consequently it's not into the manga of Naoko Takeuchi. Sorry for your frustrations, and learn living in our time. If SMC existed during your childhood, it would be your favorite. Okay, so, well, I'll ignore the grammar errors and all of that, because I think it's a dick move to just, like, call somebody's argument flawed just because their grammar sucks. But, yeah, the one, like, good point that could be gleaned from that is the whole nostalgia issue. And I do often wonder, it's like, well, how would I feel about 90s Sailor Moon now if I saw it now for the first time and I had never seen it as a teenager? I definitely would have different opinions about it. I think I probably would still like it because to me it's quite similar to My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, and I like that, and I just started watching that like 2 years ago. So I think I'd like it still. But I definitely would feel different about it. It wouldn't have this like near and dear place in my heart. Like, so yeah, that is a good point, but there is no way really to scientifically know, like to test that theory unless you clone a bunch of me, and that would be a really unethical experiment, so I don't know if I'd want to try that. But having said all that, I try to keep an open mind when going into something. Like, I really wanted to like Sailor Moon Crystal, and I was hoping, actually, that it was not going to be like the original Sailor Moon. I was hoping that they were going to bring something new to the table. Like with PGSM, they did bring something new to the table. It was based more off of the manga than original 90s anime was, but they still, like, added so much. Like, Minako was an idol. She was a singer that was like so new and interesting, and it worked so well, and she was terminally ill and stuff, and it was like, whoa. And I don't know, it was so cool what they did, the changes they did. Not all the changes, like I loved Evil Sailor Mercury, I loved Darkury, but that weird like Queen Beryl alter ego character, I forget her name, I didn't really care for that. And I also didn't really care for Luna becoming a little girl, a human little girl. That was weird, but I really liked that they went in some different directions with it in PGSM, and I was hoping that they were going to do that with Crystal. I was not looking for a carbon copy of 90s anime Sailor Moon. Like, if you're going to do that, why not just re-release the original 90s anime? Why bother copying it? I have watched Sailor Moon since 1996 and have been a fan for all this time. I am very grateful it is back. Love it! If you go back and watch an episode of the 90s version, you'll see how poorly it is drawn. It's almost hard to watch after seeing Crystal. I hope for more and more Crystal. I can't wait. It's been an exciting year for Sailor Moon fans. This parody song is funny. Nice job. Well, thank you. So, see that not all these comments are trolling either, and I really appreciate that. There are plenty of Crystal fans that were like respectful and like nice in the way they were saying their things, which is cool. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so the animation style, yeah, totally. Like a lot of the 90s people, okay, so people make fun of the Crystal animation style too. They'll freeze frame the moments where it's drawn really badly, and they'll be like, see, it sucks, the animation sucks. And it's like, let's be real, guys. Animation quality today is so much different from what it was in the 90s. Technology has improved. It's just better. I mean, a lot of people might argue, no, it was more charming when it was more like hand-drawn and I don't know. But I don't know, to me, everything just looks better. I think it's cleaner, it's more polished, it just looks better to me. So I actually do think that the animation in Crystal is better. I don't even mind their long, spindly spider bodies, because I guess I see myself in them. But yeah, there's plenty of cringeworthy moments in 90s anime with art style. I would have preferred them to do a continuation of the story Sailor Moon rather than a reboot, such as sending the girls off to college and them getting jobs. It would be more satisfying and more fun to watch than reboot. It's just a thought I had. Fucking-men. Your opinions are opinions. Nothing more, nothing else. They are neither right nor wrong, so stop taking any of this too seriously, guys. Yep. I think that the remake has made a great progress compared with the old version. In the old one, Sailor Moon's role is more like a finisher rather than a fighter. I've watched over 200 episodes of Sailor Moon in the 90s, and every single one was tedious since the fighting scene was only 5 minutes long, and Sailor Moon only got to use her fatality, and then it was the end of it. The new show gives Sailor Moon longer screen time than the old one, making her a real soldier rather than one who steals other glories. Moreover, the animation makes more sense since it doesn't take too long for her to spin around. Back in the 90s, I always wondered what were the monsters doing while Sailor Moon was spinning her rod non-stop. Yes, and we often made fun of this, my friends and I, back in the 90s while we were fans, but like to me that's kind of part of the charm. I really liked how formulaic all those episodes were. I'm a villain fan, and villains get no love in Crystal or the manga, so it's 90s anime all the way for me. Also, at the risk of incurring the wrath of Crystal fans, I am very anti-sen/she. They just don't belong together in couples, and I think Naoko knew that, which is why she didn't pursue it in the manga. They shouldn't have tried to cram it into Crystal, especially if they couldn't make it seem at least plausible. But I may be biased. Kunzoi 5 ever. Probably meant forever. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of liked the sen/she thing. Again, just because it was something finally new and original to Crystal, and they could have explored that more, and I think that would have been really interesting if they'd gone a little more into the past life thing, because 90s anime didn't really go into the Silver Millennium that much at all. They had like one episode devoted to it, and that's it. So I think it would have been really neat, actually, if Crystal had explored that more, or if Crystal had been almost entirely just the Silver Millennium flashback, how they became reincarnated. If like the first season, the first 12 episodes was that would have been actually kind of cool. I would have liked to have seen that. Yeah, but I do love Kunzite and Zoisite. They're like a really good couple. I tried to watch the original Sailor Moon a long time ago and thought it was dumb. Guardians shouldn't fight like they are enemies, like Usagi and Rei did multiple times. It was annoying and made them all look and sound like grade school children, and Usagi was an even bigger crybaby. I will agree a little bit on the grade school children part, but I liked that there was fighting within. There needs to be some tension. There needs to be something happening in the relationships between the characters to make it interesting. In Crystal, they're kind of bland. You don't know who these people are. You don't know how they interact with each other very much because you don't see that. So I like them fighting with each other. If they were perfect and didn't fight with each other and were not flawed characters, it would be a very boring show. Okay, Sailor Sedna actually said something I disagreed with a little bit, so I'll go into this. And what's with some comments claiming Sailor Moon was for kids? It never was. It was intended for teenagers 13 plus and adults. I mean, sorry if I sound really pissed off and some of the things sounded very harsh, but it's just something I wanted to let out as I've had to deal with these people a lot ever since Crystal came out, and at times it has made me wish it never got made. I did respond to this comment, but people probably don't like go back and read like all of the comments to a video. I don't know. But anyway, because it has a misconception in there that tons of people have about Sailor Moon and anime in general, and I just wanted to like clear it up right now. Hey guys, I'm gonna ruin your world for a moment here. Anime, it is intended for kids. The anime that's not intended for kids, it's intended for otaku. So yeah, Sailor Moon, the 90s version, was definitely intended for children. If you like look at the literature, if you read things that people have said about it, like the creators of it, it was intended for children. People might be like, oh my god, but what about the violence and like the gay relationships and the nudity and stuff? And it's like, the violence in Sailor Moon was not terribly violent, honestly. Like, look at other American cartoons. You'll find violence pretty much on par with that. And as for the nudity, why is nudity inherently like bad and something that children shouldn't see? Like, you can't see any genitalia when the girls are spinning around naked transforming. They don't even have nipples. Like, it's just outlines of their body. And as for the homosexual couples, that shouldn't even be an issue. I mean, in the 90s it was still kind of an issue, and today, sadly, it's still an issue, but that should not even be an issue. It should be totally normal and not radical or a political statement in any way to have a homosexual couple in a show. I'm sorry. But yeah, it was definitely intended for children. Like, people ages 13 plus probably wouldn't admit to watching Sailor Moon. That doesn't mean that adults and people ages 13 plus can't enjoy it. Like, again, My Little Pony, I'll bring that up again. It is intended for children, for sure, but there's a huge, huge community of men, mostly, but also women, myself included, that are adults who don't even have children, and we like My Little Pony. It's like... Crystal, on the other hand, I would argue, is intended for adults, and here's why. It's aired on, like, the internet, pretty much, which only older people are more likely to access. Children aren't going to really necessarily do that. I mean, I guess a lot of children nowadays would, but even so, it's a little obscure. It's not, like, that easily accessible. You have to really know about it and look for it. And the other reason is, they were pretty strategic. They released it thinking, okay, the people that were kids who enjoyed 90s Sailor Moon, now they're all grown up with kids of their own, and they have money. So we're gonna make a reboot for those people so that they can watch it with their kids, they can relive their, childhood nostalgia, and they can spend money on the merch.
Pan, what's up? You wanna help Mommy make the video? Come here. You're so big and fat. Good boy. Oh, what's wrong? You want to go back outside with your sister? Oh, Mr. Perkins.
Ooh. I honestly love Sailor Moon Crystal. Season 3 was epic, including the art. Season 1 and 2 was, the art was pretty dope, and they had more powers. Their costumes looked cooler, Sailor Moon's tiara thing looked way better, they looked more beautiful, etc. I liked the costumes in Crystal too. I liked the variety, kind of like the manga did. The thing about 90s anime was like every single costume was almost exactly the same except the colors, but I like in Crystal the little details, like Mercury's costume doesn't have those weird like poofy sleeve things. I can't think of any other differences because I'm not like super Sailor Moon Crystal savvy, but like I know there's more subtle differences in the costumes in Sailor Moon Crystal, and I do appreciate that. For me, the DIC dub will forever be the definitive Sailor Moon. I know that isn't a very popular stance to take, but it's what I grew up with. When I think of Sailor Moon, I hear the DIC voices and music in my head. I've seen several other versions, but none of them are as endearing or as fun as the old DIC dub. I'll never forget Serena, the silly, unlovable meatball head. This, I have to give credit where credit is due, and yeah, as much as we all love to make fun of the DIC dub, and as much as we all like claim to hate it, that is what got me into Sailor Moon. I watched the first 60 some odd episodes of the DIC dub. They cut off like right in the middle of Sailor Moon R when I was a fan. It was ridiculous. And then they canceled Sailor Moon, and there was a big campaign on the internet called SOS, Save Our Sailors. I signed the petition. When they canceled it, I was in mourning. I made black cloaks with my friend, and we wore black cloaks, and we had like frowny faces on our foreheads when we were at school for a whole week because we were in mourning. I was mildly obsessed. Yeah, as much as we like to rip on the DIC dub and that version, like, it was fun. And looking back, now that I understand Japanese, and now that I watched the whole series through in original Japanese, like without even having to read the subtitles or anything, it is quite cheesy and campy. And I do think the DIC dub actually did manage to capture a lot of that pretty well. Yeah, it had some cringeworthy like language in there, some cringeworthy accents, like Molly, Naru-chan's like New York accent.
Mr. Stanton, I'm Molly Baker. We met last week at the tennis tournament.
But yeah, the DIC dub does hold a dear place in my heart, actually. Oh, and here, this is great. So I got a comment in German, and then, what do you know, Sailor Senda responded in German. So it's been years since I've learned German. German was actually my first second language, but it's been years since I've spoken it or used it, so I'm quite rusty. But anyway, Sailor Moon Crystal ist einfach besser. Ich bin mit Sailor Moon 90 aufgewachsen. Allerdings wird die Geschichte bei Crystal viel besser erklärt und die Liebe zwischen Mamoru und Usagi wird viel besser dargestellt. Bei der 90er, 90er, wirkt Mamoru immer so genervt. So, like, mostly she's saying, like, that everything is better in Crystal, but especially she's more interested, like, the love between Mamoru and Usagi is, like, a lot clearer, and it's, like, it's just better. And then Sailor Senda's response is even longer, and in German. This is great. And I'm gonna kind of echo what she's saying in her response. The point is, like, Mamoru in Crystal seems more like just this dream man, this, like, Gary Stu character, instead of like a real actual guy. That the relationship seems more toxic than romantic, which I kind of agree with, but I kind of disagree with. I just feel like the relationship between Usagi and Mamoru in Crystal just wasn't really fleshed out. It's just sort of like, oh, we're in love now. And it's like, you barely met, you barely know each other, and oh, we're in love now. And then it's explained away by like, oh, well, fate, star-crossed lovers. And yeah, I don't really care for that. What I do prefer, though, I am going to say this one thing. I really am glad that in Crystal, Mamoru is in high school, at least, because that was really, like, creepy to me in 90s Sailor Moon, and it still is creepy to me that Mamoru is a college student and Usagi is, like, in middle school, and somehow they're dating. I don't know, that's just wrong. It's not necessarily the ew pedophilia kind of thing, but it's more, to me, like, why would a person in college be interested in a person in junior high? Like, their values are different. Their positions in life are different. He lives in an apartment by himself, supporting himself. She lives at home with her parents and cries over her homework all the time. It's like, I just don't really see, you know, how they would form a romantic relationship. And again, I think that's something that PGSM really did well, was their relationship. I think it made a lot more sense in PGSM, you know, how they got together. It was a little more natural, a little more organic. What I did like about 90s anime with Usagi and Mamoru's relationship is I do like how they started out as frenemies and then sort of became friends, and then from there became romantic. It was a nice progression. It's just this whole star-crossed lovers, we're fated to be together thing still was prevalent in the 90s version, and I didn't care for that either. I don't think it's a good message. On the one hand, yeah, it's a story, okay? just, you know, let it be a fairy tale, let it be unrealistic. There's plenty of other unrealistic things happening in this story. But for a story where I think they really get the friendships down well and they really show us how to make good friendships with people, I think they really drop the ball with like how to make good romantic relationships with people in 90s Sailor Moon and in Sailor Moon Crystal. And I just feel like, as somebody who's older and who has actual life experience in romantic relationships now, I'm just sort of like, yeah, that's bullshit. That's like not a good relationship, or oh my god, those two would never actually be together in real life. I never was a fan of their romance anyway, so Crystal is better. I tried watching the 90s once, but Usagi was so annoying. Too much crying and complaining. Crystal, she is more mature and less of a crybaby. I still adore the 90s anime, but Crystal got my heart, especially with the Outer Scouts. Love how they use the talisman rightly instead of that pure heart stuff. That I have to disagree with. I loved the pure heart stuff in the 90s version. I loved the irony of Uranus and Neptune, like, we're looking for the pure heart crystals at any cost, and we'll make any sacrifices to find those pure heart crystals and find the talisman inside the pure hearts. And then it turns out that they had the pure heart crystals that had the talismans all along, and they had to, you know, Uranus like shooting herself with the gun, like, ah, it's so cool. And it's like, I missed that in Crystal. I was like, oh, yeah, I loved that they did that in the 90s anime. I love the pure heart crystals. I love the talisman. I love Minako's episode where she's like, why didn't I get targeted by the bad guys? Am I not pure of heart? It was so adorable. I digress. Yeah, Usagi is annoying in 90s anime. She is too much of a crybaby, and that does go along with the whole, like, why are she and Mamoru together? They just, like, would not make a good couple in real life. Sure, I could do with Usagi being a little less of a crybaby, although she did grow. Like, if you look at the entire series as an arc, if you forget Super S existed, just forget that that existed. That's not even canon. If you just skip ahead straight from S to Stars, Usagi does really grow and become more mature, so it's really neat to watch that. But yeah, it's a little cringeworthy if you watch like the Dark Kingdom arc and just how much of a crybaby she is. Like, she's 5 years old. Look at Anime America podcast Sailor Moon Crystal vlogs. They're much better than this video, and they go into more details than this video and all SMC hater videos. Well, excuse me, but I had like 4 minutes to voice my opinions on a series, and I did so while rhyming, not only with my own lyrics, but rhyming with the original lyrics in the original song. So of course I'm not going to be able to like effectively articulate all of my opinions about a series in a little tiny video like that. And again, it wasn't really an SMC hater video, it was just a playful critique. And I mean, considering the constraints, I think I did a pretty damn good job. So thanks for sitting through that really long video. If you want me to do more videos like this, that are long and rambly about my thoughts on anime, go ahead and give this video a like or something, I don't know.
Salaya's gonna help me say goodbye. Say bye-bye. I'm sorry, honey. See you next time.